Did you know that a brave young Jewish girl became the queen who challenged an empire? Imagine facing a challenge so great that your own life is at risk, but you decide to go ahead to protect those you love. In this video, we'll delve into the story of Esther, the woman whose faith and determination changed the fate of an entire nation. Follow along from her unexpected ascension to the throne to the moments of maximum tension, where her unwavering courage stood up to King Xerxes and foiled his plans for destruction. This is not just an ancient story, it is a living inspiration for those who face adversity and seek the strength to overcome it. Discover how faith and courage can transform any situation, bringing hope and salvation. Get ready for an exciting journey through the incredible saga of Queen Esther. If this video is relevant to you, don't forget to like it. This helps YouTube recommend this story to bless others. Let's get to today's story. In the imposing kingdom of Persia, a vast empire known for its wealth and power, reigned the great King Xerxes. This monarch, known for his grandiose feasts and absolute authority, faced a problem within his own palace. Queen Vashti, in an act of disobedience, refused to attend one of his feasts. This act of rebellion could not be ignored, and Xerxes, advised by his wise men, decided to remove her from her position as queen. With the throne next to Xerxes empty, the search for a new queen began. Throughout the empire, a decree was sent out for the most beautiful young women to be brought to the palace. This process involved not only beauty, but also the chance to show grace, intelligence, and dignity. Among the many young women was a girl called Esther, a young Jewish girl brought up by her cousin Mordecai after the death of her parents. Esther, in addition to her remarkable beauty, possessed a pure heart and a wisdom that made her stand out. Esther was taken to the palace along with other young women. Each of them would undergo a long period of preparation, which included beauty treatments and instructions on court life. Esther, however, stood out not only for her appearance, but for her humility and character. She quickly won the favor of Haggai, the man in charge of the harem, who treated her with special attention and gave her the best quarters and care. When the time came to present herself to King Xerxes, Esther used all her grace and wisdom. When Xerxes saw her, he was immediately captivated. Unlike other young women who sought to impress him with extravagance, Esther showed simplicity and sincerity. Her behavior so won the king's heart that he didn't hesitate to choose Esther as the new queen of Persia. Against all odds, a young Jewish girl became the queen of one of the largest empires of the time. This coronation was not only a personal triumph for Esther, but the beginning of a journey that would change the destiny of her people. With an unexpected destiny, Esther was placed in a position of great influence but also of great risk. The courage and wisdom she would demonstrate in the following years would become one of the most inspiring stories in the Bible, showing that even in the most difficult circumstances, faith and integrity can prevail. And so Esther began her new life in the royal palace, surrounded by luxury and intrigue, but always keeping Mordecai's teachings and wisdom at heart. This transformation from ordinary girl to queen was just the beginning of a series of events that would prove crucial for the future of the Jews in the Persian Empire. Esther's story is a testimony to how divine providence can use unlikely individuals to accomplish great deeds, and how courage and faith can transform the course of history. While Esther was adjusting to life in the luxurious palace, where every day brought new challenges and responsibilities, a dark threat was looming over the Jewish people. At the center of this sinister plot was Haman, the prime minister of King Xerxes. Haman was a powerful man, but also extremely vain and proud. He expected everyone in the kingdom to bow down to him, showing due respect to his position. However, Mordecai, Esther's cousin and a devout and upright man, refused to bow down to Haman. He believed that his reverence was due only to God and not to a man. This public and constant refusal inflamed Haman's hatred. Determined to take revenge on Mordecai, Haman decided that Mordecai's death alone would not be enough to satisfy his anger. He devised a much more far-reaching and cruel plan, the annihilation of all the Jews in the Persian Empire. Haman, using his position of power and influence over King Xerxes, managed to convince the king that the Jews were a threat to the kingdom. He argued that their behavior and different laws justified their elimination. Xerxes, trusting his prime minister, agreed and signed a decree authorizing the destruction of all Jews on a specific date, without realizing the gravity of what he had done. When the decree was made public, panic and despair quickly spread among the Jewish people. Mordecai, dressed in sackcloth and ashes, wept and cried at the palace gates. His sadness was profound, but his determination was even greater. He sent an urgent message to Esther, imploring her to use her position as queen to intercede with the king and save her people. Esther, on receiving the message, faced a terrifying dilemma. Approaching the king without being asked meant risking her own life, as such an act could be punishable by death. But courage and love for her people spoke louder. Esther asked Mordecai to gather all the Jews of Shushan for a 3-day fast, asking for God's help and intervention. Esther and her servants would also fast and pray. After 3 days of fasting and prayer, Esther prepared to face the king. Dressed in her royal robes, she approached the throne room, knowing that her life was at stake. When Xerxes saw her, his heart was touched, and he held out the golden scepter, allowing her to approach. With wisdom and care, Esther invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared, promising to reveal her request on that occasion. The banquet would be a crucial moment, but Esther's courage and Mordecai's determination had already begun to change the course of history. Haman's plot would not go unnoticed, and Esther's actions would demonstrate that, even in the face of great danger, faith and courage could prevail. After Esther's courageous act of entering the king's presence and getting him to extend the cedar tree to her, she invited King Xerxes and Haman to a banquet. As they ate and drank the wine that was served, the king asked Queen Esther what her request was. Esther, showing an impressive mastery of timing and diplomacy, asked the king and Haman to come to a second banquet the following day, where she would then reveal her request. This strategic move gave Esther more time to prepare her approach and possibly win more favor with the king. Haman left the banquet full of pride, but his joy quickly turned to fury when he saw Mordecai once again refusing to bow down to him. Determined to put an end to Mordecai, Haman had a very high gallows built, where he planned to hang his enemy. Little did he know that his own plot was about to turn against him. That night, King Xerxes, unable to sleep, asked for the book of the kingdom's chronicles to be read to him. During the reading, he was reminded of the heroic act of Mordecai, who had uncovered a plot against the king's life. Realizing that Mordecai had never been rewarded, Xerxes decided to honor him, not knowing that this decision would be crucial in the events that would unfold at Esther's second banquet. At dawn, Haman arrived at the palace to ask the king for permission to hang Mordecai. However, before he could make his request, Xerxes called him and asked, "What should be done to the man the king wishes to honor?" Haman, convinced that the king was referring to himself, suggested a grand celebration, including dressing the man in royal clothes, putting him on the king's horse and leading him through the streets of the city, proclaiming his honor to everyone. To Haman's shock and horror, Xerxes ordered him to do exactly that for Mordecai. Haman had to lead Mordecai through the streets, announcing the king's favor, while his humiliation was complete. This unexpected and humiliating event marked the beginning of Haman's fall and Mordecai's rise, drastically altering the course of the events that followed. Meanwhile, Esther was preparing for the second banquet, knowing that the fate of her people depended on the success of her intervention. The suspense was at its height, and Esther's determination, coupled with the turn of events, prepared the ground for the decisive revelation to come. The second banquet organized by Esther was filled with an atmosphere of expectation and tension. King Xerxes and Haman, the prime minister, were present, enjoying an elaborate banquet specially prepared by Esther. The king, anxious to know what his queen had to ask for, repeated his question to Esther. "What is your wish? Anything you ask, up to half my kingdom I will grant." Esther, with the courage and wisdom that characterized her, finally revealed her Jewish identity and the great danger her people were facing. She said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, O king, and if it pleases the king, spare my life. This is my request. And spare my people, this is my wish. for I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed and annihilated." Xerxes, surprised and furious, asked who had done such a thing. Esther, pointing to Haman, declared, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." The king, filled with rage when he realized that his queen was in danger and that he had been deceived by his own advisor, got up in a fit of anger and went out into the palace garden. Haman, realizing that his situation was hopeless, stayed to beg Esther for his life. On returning to the hall, the king found Haman lying on the couch where Esther was reclining, begging for his mercy. This only increased the wrath of the king, who interpreted the scene as an attempt at violence against the queen. Without further ado, the king ordered that Haman be executed on the same gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Thus, the very instrument of death that Haman had built for his enemy became the symbol of his downfall. Haman was taken and hanged, sealing his tragic fate. With the fall of Haman, Xerxes transferred his vast estate to Esther. Esther revealed Mordecai's relationship with her to the king, and the king appointed Mordecai as the new prime minister, giving him the signet ring that had previously belonged to Haman. The turnaround was complete. From a man condemned to death, Mordecai became a figure of great influence and power in the kingdom. Esther and Mordecai were not only saved, but also given positions of great importance and responsibility. This victory was not only personal, but also a victory for the entire Jewish people. Haman's decree was reversed, and a new decree was issued, allowing the Jews to defend themselves against any attack. Esther and Mordecai's triumph over Haman marked a dramatic turning point in the fate of the Jews in Persia, transforming a situation of despair into one of hope and security. This story is not only an account of courage and faith, but also proof that justice can prevail, even in the most difficult circumstances. Even with Haman's death, the threat against the Jews still persisted. The decree of annihilation, which had been signed by King Xerxes under Haman's influence, was still in force. This decree allowed anyone in the empire to attack and kill the Jews, confiscating their property. Fear and uncertainty still hung over the Jewish people. Esther, knowing that her mission was far from complete, once again took a courageous step. She decided to approach King Xerxes without being asked, aware that this act could cost her her life. Dressed in her royal clothes, she presented herself before the throne. Once again, Esther's courage was rewarded. As the king extended the golden scepter to her, allowing her to speak, Esther, with a firm voice and a heavy heart, begged the king, "If I have found favor in your eyes, O king, and if it pleases the king, let it be written to revoke the letters that Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, has written to destroy the Jews in all the king's provinces." Xerxes, touched by Esther's sincerity and desperation, agreed to take action to save his people. The king authorized Mordecai to write a new decree using the royal signet ring, allowing the Jews to defend themselves against any attack. This new decree was quickly distributed throughout the empire, bringing hope and preparation to the Jews. They now had royal permission to organize and protect their lives and property. When the day of annihilation arrived, the Jews were ready. Armed and ready, they faced their aggressors with courage and determination. In every province of the empire, the Jews defended themselves and defeated those who sought to harm them. The victory was decisive, and the Jewish people ensured their survival against all odds. This triumph not only saved lives, but also strengthened the identity and unity of the Jewish people. In commemoration of their liberation, they instituted the festival of Purim. This festival, celebrated to this day, is a time of rejoicing, exchanging gifts, and donating to those in need. Purim recalls the divine intervention and courage of Esther and Mordecai, who not only saved their people, but also established a tradition of celebration and gratitude. The salvation of the Jewish people was a testimony to the faith and courage of a young queen who risked everything to protect her people. Queen Esther's story is a powerful reminder that, even in the face of danger and injustice, faith, courage, and determined action can change the course of history. Esther's story transcends the simple act of saving her people from annihilation. Her journey is an epic of unwavering faith, fearless courage, and divine providence at work. After all the dramatic events, Esther and Mordecai became central and respected figures in the Persian court, influencing decisions and ensuring the safety of the Jews in the vast empire. Esther, the young Jewish girl who became queen, showed the world that even a seemingly ordinary person can make a monumental difference. Her courage in standing before King Xerxes, risking her life, and her wisdom in handling the situation with cunning and patience are examples of how faith can drive extraordinary actions. Mordecai, alongside Esther, also exemplified loyalty and integrity, defending his people and advising his cousin with wisdom. The Feast of Purim, instituted to commemorate the salvation of the Jews, is a living testimony to this legacy. Celebrated every year, Purim recalls the heroic events of Esther and Mordecai. During this festival, Jews read the Book of Esther, exchange gifts, donate to the poor, and celebrate with feasts and merriment. Purim is not only a celebration of a historical event, but also a powerful reminder of the importance of justice, courage, and faith. The impact of Esther's story goes beyond the celebrations. It continues to inspire people around the world. Even people who don't live Christianity see Esther as an example to follow. The narrative highlights the strength and power of a single person to stand up against injustice, to fight for what is right, and to trust in divine providence even in times of great adversity. Obviously, this strength and power came directly from Queen Esther's fear of the living God. Esther and Mordecai not only ensured the survival of their people, but also set a standard of leadership and courage that continues to be revered. Esther's story is proof that, when guided by faith and courage in God, even the most insurmountable challenges can be faced and overcome. Her story is an eternal reminder that, in moments of crisis, faith and courage can change the course of history, bringing light and hope where there was once darkness and despair. Leave a comment and tell me how Queen Esther's example can influence your life today. Next door is another surprising story that will impact your life. See you in the next video.